Reflecting on the key issues dividing the country and unity. For the very latest, we go to ABC's Rachel Scott reporting from our nation's capital. Rachel.
It is an ambitious agenda. It's unclear whether or not President Joe Biden even has the support within his own party to get it done. But tonight, the president laying out a plan to address infrastructure, child care, health care. The total price tag on this, $8 trillion, a number that is too high for Republicans. But the president saying tonight doing nothing is not an option. But he is under immense pressure to try and find some common ground with Republicans on his next legislative push. One of the areas tonight he said he is making progress on is the issue of police reform. He says he'd like to get something done by the month of May. And while much of the focus was on President Joe Biden, it was the two women behind him that made history for the first time. Two women sitting behind a president of the United States.
Thank you, Rachel. For more on the highlights of the presidential address, here's ABC's Trevor Ault.
100 days since I took the oath of office and lifted my hand off our family Bible and inherited a nation, we all did, that was in crisis. The worst pandemic in a century, the worst economic crisis since the Great Depression. Now, after just 100 days, I can report to the nation, America is on the move again.
In his first address to Congress, the 46th president of the United States.
To be fair, I think, again, I think that he has gotten a lot better. Like, I feel like Joe Biden is the only person that has gotten younger as he assumed the responsibilities of the president. Kind of weird.
4 months.
Like, everyone gets old as fuck. I don't know what they're doing. I don't know what kind of presidential adrenochrome he's on right now, but he is. I don't know what kind of sauce he has, but motherfucker's getting younger. Oh.
States embodying the slogan, go big or go home.
We also need to make a once-in-a-generation investment in our families and our children.
Proposing the largest expansion of government programs in more than 50 years, $1.8 trillion for the American Families Plan that provides universal preschool, creates a paid family leave program, and makes 2 years of community colleges free.
No one should have to choose between a job and a paycheck or taking care of themselves and their loved ones or parent or spouse or child.
The president focusing on his vision for the economy, tying his American jobs plan to everything from union organizing.
The middle class built the country, and unions built the middle class.
To climate change.
When I think climate change, I think jobs.
And his ambitious agenda paid for by raising taxes on corporations and the 1%.
I'm not looking to punish anybody. But I will not add a tax burden, additional tax burden to the middle class in this country. They're already paying enough.
During his remarks, the president sort of skirted the actual massive price tags for these plans.
I fucking hate this, dude. I hate this. I think he talked about the deficit too much, okay? One of the criticisms that I was thinking about after I gave it another listen to the highlights, one of the criticisms that I had was actually that he offered any lip service whatsoever to the deficit. When at the time I didn't address it, but it triggered me a little bit when he was like, think about the Trump tax cuts. The price tag for that was terrible. It's like, don't even mention that, honestly. Unless you are going to mention deficit hawking is fake, you don't even need to mention the deficit as far as Trump's tax cuts goes. Don't talk about it as a criticism of it.
Imagine thinking that
talk about the other parts of the Trump tax cuts, which were that CEOs gaining more money, wealthy people getting more money, and the money not necessarily coming back into the middle class, the American middle class, as they originally claimed, which Biden did talk about, which was very good, and I did like that a lot. His speech was really good overall, dude. Seriously, 300 times more CEO pay, fucking trickle down economics isn't real, and it's fucking fake, and it's not good. he hit a lot of high notes. Like, it was very good. It was very, very good.
But he was clear who he thought should pick up the bill. He has said repeatedly, and he said again during his speech, he thinks that corporations should be paying more, and he thinks that high-income earners should be paying more.
President Biden spent 8 years sitting behind President Obama for these speeches, and for 35 years before that, listening in the audience as a senator. Now at 78, he believes his moment has come.
America's ready for a takeoff, in my view. We're working again, dreaming again, discovering again, and leading the world again.
As the paralysis from a national pandemic slowly lifts, the president celebrating the bipartisan effort to get the country on the road to recovery.
Together we passed the American Rescue Plan, one of the most consequential rescue packages in American history. We're already seeing the results.
Highlighting the role of government in the country's mass vaccination drive.
Thanks to all the help of all of you. We're marshaling, with your help, everyone's help, we're marshaling every federal resource. We've gotten vaccines to nearly 40,000 pharmacies.
According to the most recent ABC News Washington Post poll, the public gives the president his highest marks for handling the pandemic, with 64% approving. But the country remains bitterly divided, beset by intractable problems like immigration.
Immigrants have done so much for America during this pandemic and throughout our history. The country supports immigration reform. We should act.
Tonight,
So I think his takes on immigration reform were minuscule. He didn't really focus on it too much because it's his biggest area of weakness. Why is it his biggest area of weakness? Because immediately, as soon as fucking Trump was out of office, the media collectively decided to start taking dog shit considerations that Republicans have and reactionaries have in regards to like immigrants coming into the country and fucking shit up, totally made up reactionary fantasies, as though they were legitimate. Started covering the border crisis as a crisis that needed to be dealt with, that Biden was doing a bad job with. The Democratic Party is already super fickle when it comes to caving to the reactionary needs or reactionary demands that conservatives have. So they caved, and they act like their hands were super tied. He's not using the bully pulpit to effectively whip everybody and consistently talk about how important it is to allow there to be a humane immigration policy into this country and how that would be a legitimate solution. So he didn't do that. He didn't do that here, and I wish he did. Same with how much he talks about the care industry in general, especially elderly care or child care, is very good, but rarely does he ever talk about actual health care for the overwhelming majority of working Americans, adults, as far as, an expansion of Medicare, which wasn't even discussed, and even the public option, which it seems like Joe Biden has completely given up on and rarely ever talks about. So that sort of stuff is really frustrating. He talked about, wanting to push for the $15 minimum wage, and everybody clapped for it. Meanwhile, like, the biggest hurdles for this sort of thing, the biggest hurdles for, him passing any part of his agenda is obviously the filibuster. And even before the filibuster, one of the biggest hurdles for passing anything, even through a budget reconciliation, is, of course, the motherfucker who was sitting there reading his pocket constitution because, oh God, I love the aesthetic plays that these old dipshits make. Like, and I'm, of course, referencing Joe Manchin. Joe Manchin was sitting there reading his pocket constitution and taking notes, apparently, even though there is literally I don't know if he was actually reading a pocket constitution or not, but like, oh God, what a fucking bitch, dude. What an absolute bitch. This is all of us. Oh, God. No, he was taking notes, I think. I don't know if he was even reading the Pocket Constitution or not, but like, I don't know why he was taking notes because, you know, those, the transcripts are readily available, but who knows? I think it was just specifically for, I think this was specifically for, this sort of coverage so that people could be like, wow, he's so careful. He's just like writing stuff down. Like, man, fuck off. So this guy, Sinema, Hasan, and a bunch of other senators are the people standing in front of progress. All parts of Biden's agenda that he mentioned tonight, or I mean, sorry, last night, can only be completed if Biden increases pressure and even threatens, by way of using Democratic leadership, loss of committee positions on all of these people that are portraying the role of spoiler. And I think Biden should be more aggressive. He should be more aggressive in the way that he approaches this. And that is if they legitimately want to get any of this agenda passed.
Hi, chat.
Joe Biden could be the most progressive president of our lifetime if he actually achieves everything that he talked about, if he actually accomplishes everything that he talked about. Straight up. But he most likely won't. And the reason why he most likely won't is because, by the way, the most progressive president of our lifetime isn't exactly a fucking metric of success either. It's just relative to our lifetime. Now, why do I say this? It's because, unfortunately, we haven't had many progressive presidents. Do you understand? So we'll see what happens. We'll see his advocacy and how far his advocacy goes. His speech is good. He's talking the talk. He's starting to walk the walk as well with policy positions, like actual policies that tag along with the problems that he is speaking of, policies that are actually good in nature as well, from beefing up the IRS for more auditing capabilities of people who have over $400,000 or make over $400,000 a year, all the way to potentially increasing the capital gains tax to make it resemble income tax. These are really good trends. There are really good policy positions. The PRO Act, like, all of that stuff is great. Now, what he needs to do is use the bully pulpit to start whipping the Democratic caucus. Okay? He needs to start whipping the Democratic caucus to ensure that
Just got my second dose
you're
of
talking
Pfizer,
entirely
pushing
too
like
soon.
nervous for
No,
symptoms,
I
but
am
excited.
talking about my immediate opinions, and then I'm going to give you my speculation on what is going to happen. Okay? Joe Biden needs to stop pausing the video. Motherfucker, I'm a political commentator. Go watch the fucking politics videos on your own, idiot. We're not even doing like house reacts. This is literally my job. That's just in the background, stupid. Dumbass on the wrong fucking stream. Anyway. As I was saying, why is Joe Manchin so important? Because even if there is a budget reconciliation where any sort of like a proposal can get passed with a simple majority vote on it, you still have spoilers that are within the Democratic Party that make up the 50 votes absolutely necessary, that have a lot of power and can simply say, no, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to vote for this. You have to remove certain parts of this legislation. That is really damaging. That's really terrible. And Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema not only don't mind being that person, but I'd go so far as to say they like being that person. I think they like the importance and the coverage that they get out of being a spoiler for the sake of being a spoiler, because they do not have a single tangible ideological position. Like, they're not standing against certain pieces of legislation from an ideological standpoint. You know what I'm saying? Like, they're simply there to spoil the process and make it about themselves. No, the Democrats can't just replace them. They are voted in to office. But the Democrats can and should pressure them, threaten them with committee position removals, and consistently get the rest of the country to consistently just agitate the rest of the country against them. And they're not doing enough of that. Okay? Like, neuter their power. Why are committee positions so important? If you're in a committee position, you're playing a more profoundly impactful role. You're playing a larger impactful role on legislation writing and what gets put into legislation, which means you're in a position to get more money from corporate lobbyists and donors. It's literally where your power comes from as a senator or as a congressperson in general. So, like, even if you can't threaten for committee removals, you could just straight up pressure people over and over again. Just like in the in the $15 minimum wage battle. Just like in the $15 minimum wage battle, they could have easily ended up overriding the parliamentarians' decision not to include the $15 minimum wage in the package, and then applied pressure to specific senators to make sure that they voted a certain way. We could have had the $15 minimum wage in this fucking bill. We could have had it in the previous budget reconciliation. And the reason why we didn't get that is because the Democrats totally dropped the ball and didn't push hard enough. There were still many avenues. There were still many opportunities. And I'm afraid that a lot of these wonderful policies that Joe Biden speaks of, including the $15 minimum wage, is going to go the same way. Okay? That is terrifying for me.
President Biden calling on Congress to pass the immigration reform bill he sent to Congress his first day in office.
For more than 30 years, politicians have talked about immigration reform, and we've done nothing about it. It's time to fix it.
This comes in the face of a record increase in migrants. 172,000 stopped along the southwest border just in March, the largest total since the early 2000s. And unaccompanied children are the faces of this latest crisis, with right now about 22.
No, the $15 minimum wage he has already done through an executive order, but that's just for federal employees. He's already done that, but that's not enough. That makes up a very tiny. That makes up a tiny fraction of the entire workforce that would still greatly benefit from a $15 minimum wage increase. But you can't do that with executive orders. You have to do that through legislation.
2,118 unaccompanied migrant minors in U.S. custody. Biden came into office pledging to usher in a new era of U.S. immigration policy by rolling back Trump's hardline agenda. As part of one of his early executive orders, Biden established a task force to locate and reunite migrant parents and children who remain separated at the southern border. But as of early April, the task force...
The refugee cap is still at the same levels of the Trump administration. There's so much bullshit that the Democratic Party engages with when it comes to just like the continuation of white nativist reactionary points of view and reactionary white nativist policies, especially as it pertains to criminal justice and immigration, and also on the domestic policy side when it comes to economics, tax cuts. Like, Democrats hate unrolling or rolling back gains that the Republicans have made in these areas, and therefore they're effectively continuing the downward trajectory or the right-wing trajectory of these sorts of hyper-conservative white nativist policies. This is exactly what Obama did too. And this is exactly what Biden is doing in immigration. It's not good. Because every time Joe Biden does not move the needle on our immigration policy to a more equitable and more humane immigration policy, and instead continues the ongoing cruelty at the border, he's doing a disservice to future Americans. He's doing a disservice to the Democratic Party's future in general.
Was yet to reunite a single family. Another divisive issue the president thinks he can get both sides to work together on: gun control.
We need more sense.
He also didn't mention student debt, which wasn't good either. I agree. He said student debt loan cancellation. I wonder if he's like waiting on that for the midterms or something, like closer to the fucking midterms or something. Even then, it's like, because like he's gonna do it. There's no way he doesn't do it. You can say copium all you fucking want, but it's like, it's such a gimme. It's such a fucking easy. It's such an easy proposal that it like makes no political sense not to do. It makes absolutely zero political sense not to do this. I don't know why he would not. Off topic, but what was the point of introducing the Green New Deal if they knew it wasn't going to pass Congress? Because it is an outline. By the way, what do you mean? What's the fucking point? Look at Biden's fucking Build Back Better program. It's literally watered down Green New Deal shit. The Green New Deal is a incredibly effective way of speaking about climate change by hyper-focusing on the economic challenges and the economic aspect of climate change. It's great. Reframing the conversation away from like scientists that are fucking nerds that are telling you to, drink with a paper straw, to this is an opportunity. This is like damaging the environment, but it's also a great opportunity for many jobs that we can create in the field of renewable energy, especially considering that fossil fuels are finite and ruining the environment. So it is actually a incredible fucking way of talking about climate change. And I'm pretty sure that even the most neoliberal Democrats recognize that, which is why they noticed its popularity overall. Green New Deal inherently has been bastardized, whipped around by Republicans. Initially, sorry, not inherently. And people, when you hear Green New Deal, a lot of people consider like, oh, they're going to take away my burgles and my cow farts and fucking no more flights or whatever. But having said that, the ideas are really solid. It's kind of like the difference between Obamacare and the ACA. People love having their children be covered up to the age of 26. People love having to no longer worry about pre-existing conditions when they're getting insurance, but they hate Obamacare. Like at the time, they hated Obamacare. Why? Because Republicans are very effective at messaging. So it's kind of like that. It's the same mentality with the Green New Deal. People hate the Green New Deal, but they love the Green New Deal, if you know what I mean.
Expectations because expectations were zero.
The overwhelming majority of Democratic colleagues and close the loopholes required in background check purchases of guns.
D.
We need a ban on assault weapons and high-capacity magazines. And don't tell me it can't be done.
Already in 2021, there's been more than 13,000 deaths from gun violence and more than 160 mass shootings.
The flag at the White House was still flying at half-mast for the 8 victims of the mass shooting in Georgia, when 10 more lives were taken in a mass shooting in Colorado. And in the week in between those two events, 250 other Americans were shot dead in the streets of America.
Fucking iPhone in the background.
250 shot dead.
Biden also urging senators to pass the George Floyd Justice in Policing Act before the first anniversary of his death.
We have to come together to rebuild trust between law enforcement and the people they serve, to root out systemic racism in our criminal justice system, and to enact police reform in George Floyd's name. While the setting tonight is familiar, this gathering is just a little bit different. A reminder of the extraordinary times we're in.
The usually packed House chamber was sparse, just 200 senators and members of Congress, some picked in a lottery instead of the usual packed crowd. No guest with the First Lady Jill Biden, but there was a new and historic visual.
Madam Speaker.
Okay, this coverage is so dog shit, dude. Mainstream media sucks balls, brother. It is so fucking lame. Like, they fucking talk about all the dumb shit. Like, this was jam-packed full of policy proposals. They didn't mention the fucking PRO Act at all. Like, they didn't mention the signature fucking policy that he unveiled. What the fuck is going on? It's not even this part that's annoying. It's like all of it across the board.
Madam Vice President. No president has ever said those words from this podium. No president has ever said those words. And it's about time.
For the first time, two women, the Vice President and the House Speaker, number 2 and 3 in the line of succession, sitting right behind the president.
It was such a powerful image, a moment that this country...
Dude. Nothing says I don't really give a fuck about anything other than like a 1.5 hour speech that was jam-packed full of policy, and you spent most of it just like, I mean, there was like a couple takes that they talked about, like the gun control, but didn't cover the fucking PRO Act, the attack on trickle-down economics, which was pretty solid. Like, didn't even cover most of the fucking family care plan. Like, this is fucking nuts. And that same correspondent that they have literally spent the early part of this talking about the fucking the price tag of the proposal. That's it. That's the only thing they covered on that. That's wild to me.
He has never seen before, and you could tell the president wanted to relish in it.
Senator Tim Scott of South Carolina, the only black Republican senator and a rising star in the GOP, delivered his party's response to the address.
We also heard about a so-called family plan.
This was wonderful. I saw parts of this. I'm going to be honest with you. This is great. This is like his speech was so bad. It's like, oh, what about the price tag? The American government is going to be responsible from cradle to college. Like, it's like super old school, anti-social safety nets, Republican rhetoric that is dog shit, and most Republicans literally stay away from it. It is the outdated Mitt Romney style Republican politics that most people won't even touch anymore. So it's kind of funny that they put Tim Scott up to do it.
Even more taxing, even more spending, to put Washington even more in the middle of your life, from the cradle to college.
Criticizing the president's big wish list.
A president who promised to bring us together should not be pushing agendas that tear us apart.
Yeah, agendas that tear us apart, like what, motherfucker? Like child care? Like elderly care? Like fucking labor regulations? Wow, dude. That's a bit of a self-report, my friend. If that is what is tearing us apart, then it feels like maybe you're a little out of touch.
But for the president, standing in the space under attack just months ago, affirming his faith in democracy, his eternal optimism for what the country can accomplish.
It's never, ever, ever been a good bet to bet against America, and it still isn't. We're the United States of America. There's not a single thing, nothing beyond our capacity. We can do whatever we set our minds to if we do it together.
Marsha Blackburn on elder care. Oh yeah, this was pretty funny. President Biden's proposal is about anything but infrastructure. $400 billion towards elder care. Like Marsha Blackburn coming out with strong opposition to elder care. It doesn't really matter. ultimately, it doesn't really matter. Like, people still fucking are going to vote for her no matter what because, you know, partisan politics, fucking Tennessee. But still, it's hilarious that she has to go out and stand in opposition against elder care. Because that slowly chips away at your base. No matter what, they remember that. They're like, what? Like, why the fuck? What? I'm old, Marcia. I'm fucking old, Marcia. You want me to vote for you? I need that elder care. I wonder if you know. Hey, Tokyo, Fast and Furious. Dun dun dun. Yeah. Hey, Fast and Furious.